We can talk about Riot Games. Oh, we haven't talked about Riot Games on stream for such a long time. And man, there's some fucking unreal shit going on. So first of all, Riot Games, as you may remember, they've been embroiled in quite a long controversy for a while because they got called out very publicly after an expose done by Kotaku. The reason why I wanted to give her a hat tip when she didn't make the list of best esports journalists for the esports awards was primarily for the work she did in this field. I would say almost entirely for the work she did, because as somebody that's long taken shots at Riot, the only targets I've ever really been able to kind of, I've been able to get Riot to act. I got Riot to do the Echo Fox thing. That was me. I got them to, kick that MYM guy out of the league. They say they conduct their own investigations. What they mean when they say they conduct their own investigations is we read Richard Lewis's article, we saw the reaction to it on Reddit and social media, and then we just went ahead and took the appropriate action so we look like the good guys. That's what they mean whenever they say we did an investigation. I've done more investigative work for Riot than their own fucking disciplinary department. They really should employ me, I think. I think I would do a hell of a job, but, they don't like me for some reason, so whatever. But this story is the final conclusion. Riot Games have long been investigated for sexual discrimination and worse in their workplace. And this was reported in the LA Times that it's finally come through that they have decided that rather than go ahead and sort of face the class action, they've decided that they're now going to settle $10 million and they're going to settle the class action gender discrimination suit. And it's all done. So they're essentially paying $10 million in penalty fees. So I'll just read you how this is going to work. They've agreed to pay out at least $10 million to women who worked at the company in the last 5 years as part of a settlement in a class action lawsuit over alleged gender discrimination, according to court documents filed Monday. The suit began in November 2018 when two women who had worked at the Los Angeles game studio, which makes the popular League of Legends game and is owned by the Chinese technology giant Tencent, sued over violations of the California Equal Pay Act, alleging that they were routinely subject to sexual harassment and gender discrimination. The newly filed documents reveal the details of the settlement, which was announced in August for the first time. The approximately 1,000 women who worked at Riot Games from November 2014 until the date the settlement is finalized will be entitled to a payment from the multi-million-dollar pot. The final dollar amount that each employee who self-identifies as female receives will vary depending on how long they worked for Riot, with full employees receiving more than contractors. Asked about the settlement, a Riot spokesperson said in a statement, "We're pleased to have a proposed settlement to fully resolve the class action lawsuit. The settlement is another important step forward and demonstrates our commitment to living up to our values and to making Riot an inclusive environment for the industry's best talent." The company has approximately 2,500 employees at offices around the world, and it brought in an estimated $1.4 billion in revenue in 2018 alone. The settlement filing also lays out a number of commitments Riot has made to improve its company culture, including beefing up internal programs for reporting sexual harassment and discrimination. They include undertaking review of all pay, promotion, and hiring practices to increase fairness and transparency, hiring a dedicated chief diversity officer, and creating a number of employee groups empowered to track the company's progress on these fronts. Both the plaintiffs and Riot have agreed to the preliminary settlement, but it needs to be approved by the court. So let's just, before we scroll on, yes, 1,000 women are going to get their cut of 10 million, which it will be 10 million minus lawyer fees, I understand. So the lawyers are going to take their cut for winning the case, or rather getting the settlement, and then what's left will be divided by the 1,000 women, and it will be on a sliding scale. The longer you've been with the company, and if you're a full-time employee, you will get a bigger cut than if you've been with the company for a short amount of time and or you're a contractor. So it's actually not all that great. It's going to be like just a little cash injection. It reminds me, I worked on a case similar to this, funnily enough. I know you're going to go, "Richard, is there anything you haven't done in your crazy, wacky life?" I could tell you about the story about how a scammer I exposed like 2 years ago, who was doing a fake cancer Kickstarter and posing as a games journalist, just got sentenced to prison based on the evidence I uncovered. That was then, it was also signal boosted by an actress from the Walking Dead TV show. So I could tell you all about that. I'm gonna write that up. I'm gonna write that up as an article because my life is fucking mental. Yes, it's absolutely mental. But anyway, you can look it up if you want, Chris King. Anyway, so I worked for Birmingham City Council for a time when esports wasn't paying, and one of the things I had to do was basically collate claims from one of the largest gender discrimination cases in European case law history, which was that Birmingham City Council, which I think was the largest single government employer across Europe because it was so big and bloated, had been underpaying women specifically, systemically, in various jobs for decades. And these jobs included dinner ladies, grave diggers, fucking lollipop ladies. I don't even remember all of the fucking jobs. And this massive settlement got agreed, hundreds of millions. And what we had to do was we had to present, you will get this payout representative of your time in this role at an amount of X pounds per year, missing payments, and you will get it paid in this lump sum. And the lump sum would always be less than potentially what they should have had, but you get it no questions asked because it's a settlement and we just want you to go away and we want nobody to talk about it again. So the pressure was on taking the settlement rather than taking up an individual civil case and going against, which you would already win de facto because they're acknowledging guilt. But it would be drawn out, there'd be extra lawyers' fees. So what you did was you had to drive these people towards accepting the payouts, and you would tell them what they were getting. They would get a lump sum, and I was looking at some of these things, like, it was like fucking insane, you know, like some dinner lady that had worked fucking 30 years and been underpaid compared to her male counterparts. You know, you're getting this like fucking nice little pension right at the end of like hundreds of thousands of pounds because you've been systemically underpaid for fucking 3 decades. So that was pretty fucking wild. So it's a very similar situation to that, and basically 10 million. Let's just be real about it. 10 million is fuck all. It's fuck all. It is not even a slap on the wrist. This is like, all right, our bad. You just saw it there. 1.4 billion in revenue in 2018 alone. So Riot Games have basically like, look, we'll take 10 mil. Whatever. And it's literally chump change to them. If I didn't know better, maybe the Chinese overlords at Tencent have said, make this go away, whatever, you know, and they've gone in with 10 million and gone, yeah, fine, 10 million is on it. When you're generating 1.4 billion of, and sure, that's revenue, not profit. 10 million really ain't shit. It really ain't shit. And in real terms, the difference it's going to make to these women's lives it's negligible. It's like getting a holiday bonus for most people, I imagine. There might be one or two who've had it specifically bad over a specifically long period of time that it really does make some kind of like whole restitution to. But in general, for the average woman worker at Riot, this is fuck all. This is like I say, it's like, you know, you might get 5K, 10K, you know, over a year. It's like, it's a negligible amount, isn't it? So I also do love as well that, first of all, we're just going to settle. Like, do you remember when this story first broke and they wouldn't cooperate with the California fucking labor, what's it called? I always get this wrong because I call it the California Labor Commission, but it's not. It's like the California, whatever. I actually had an email one time from an employee who's into esports, and they said they emailed me saying, can you please correct one of your articles? There's no such thing as the California Labor Commission. It's this. I always get it fucking wrong because California Labor Commission just sounds cool and snappy, but, you know, it's not. Anyway, so they were talking a good game and refusing to cooperate and were saying, you know, what we're going to review our internal policies, immediately going to settle a course. And in settling, obviously, they've not really been found guilty of anything, have they? Which is why there's these two other cases from two specific people that are like, who have filed civil suit, and they are not taking the class action. These two, and I read you, if you go back and look in the first time this story broke, if you go look at one of my YouTube videos, those two civil suits, is it California Labor Commissioner's Office? Is that what it is? There you go. They're not taking any of this settlement pot, and they're going to continue their civil suit against Riot Games. So I'm going to monitor that with great interest, because I think that's going to throw up a lot more crazy shit. I'll just scroll down to the end here. Because this is where it talks about it. The suit also alleged that outspoken female employees face retaliation from Riot. I do want to just point out, if there was one thing down the years when Richard Lewis used to suit up his armor and get his lance and get on his horse and ride at that fucking dragon that was Riot Games week after week, month after month, what was I telling people repeatedly? That anybody that spoke out about anything that Riot Games did wrong, be they internal, external, contractors, employees, or journalists, or anybody, what did Riot do? They maliciously and malevolently went after their careers. And Riot Games set my fucking career back years. And they know they did it. And, you know, again, if I ever was a billionaire and I was bored, I'd fucking sue them for shits and giggles. Because I reckon there's a case there to answer. Remember, this is a company that sent their fucking hitman to ESL when it was, I can't remember what fucking event it was now, IEM San Jose, I think it was. And they said, I was meant to be hosting a StarCraft event, and they said Richard Lewis cannot be in the building when there's a Riot Games event on. And if you let him be in the building while there's a Riot Games event on, we will not let you run Riot Games tournaments ever again. That's how much they fucking hated me. That's how crazy they were. Now, what gives them the right to say me, somebody that was hosting an Activision Blizzard game, can't do that for a third-party contractor that works with multiple developers just because they think they're the big swinging dick in the room? But that's absolutely what they did. So what do you think they do? And remember, I'm just a journalist. I'm just a freelance host. So what do you think they did to the employees that were under the yoke of their tyranny, whose people, they could check their emails? They even had, there was executives within Riot that were taking company resources. And again, I know this, so if a Riot Games employee ever wants to challenge me on this, sue me. I will love the discovery phase. I will love the discovery phase. It'll all be there, all the embarrassing things that I know, all the embarrassing images I have. The discovery phase will be hilarious. I beg you to do it all the time, Riot. Please, sue me, please. If you ever think I've said anything wrong, we'll go do it. But the reality is they were diverting company resources, right, by getting employees. These were some executives within the company to monitor people's Twitter accounts that were working with them to make sure they weren't saying anything crazy or they weren't ever going against Riot Games. They would also take employees' chat logs. They would just randomly, because you have to play the game. You had to play the game to work right. You had to play League of Legends. That was another thing that came out in this report by Kotaku. You absolutely had to play League of Legends. Even if you didn't want to, you had to play the fucking game. Like, I just want to work on it. Can I make the game without playing it? No, you must play the game every day. So you had to play League of Legends. And what they would do is, if ever there was any sort of internal beef or any friction in a creative process, certain executives within the company would pull your in-game chat logs to see if you'd said anything mean and then discipline you for that within the company. Like, it was insane. As I've said it so many times. This was a frat house that made a video game, and everyone in it was crazy. I have recorded interviews from 2014 where I interviewed people who were like in the process of leaving the company or left the company, which obviously can never come out because of the really over the top NDAs that they have. And they were talking about all sorts of like crazy shit going on in that company. Just so much shit. So this is how I knew about all of this years in advance. And this is why I was saying, it's like, yep, they do this crazy shit to women. You know, I've said it before. They had a thing where they were rating, you know, they were rating women that worked in esports. You know, like again, like some college shit, like rating them out of 10 and whether they'd have sex with them and stuff on an email chain. And man, it was insane. I'd have hated to have been a woman working at this company. I'd have absolutely hated it, or a gay guy, by the way. That's another thing. I'm amazed that some of that stuff hasn't come out. It just seems to me that it was all there. All the information was there, and there were people telling you, but of course nobody ever wanted, much like the Starladder stuff we just talked about prior, nobody wanted to stand up to Riot because people believe this fucking lie. They believe it. That, oh, they're the biggest company with the most money. They're unassailable. They can hurt you. They can do things to you. No, like, they can't. There hasn't been a single company yet that's come into esports, dominated the space, and stayed at the top for the entirety of the business without having a stumble, without fucking up. You just got to wait to get your licks in. You know? It's like, you know, the guy's on, you know, you're in the ring, and the guy's in fucking on top of you, and he's in half. You've got to lie there and just fucking deep breathe. And just know, like, I'm going to get an opening to get this guy off me and maybe even do a full reversal, and then I get to do the pounding. You know? And that's just how you have to think about it. But people shit their fucking pants and get super worried about, oh, no, Riot Games will hate me, and then they'll tell all the company. And by the way, they also did some fucking really fucked up shit to some talent that I really have a lot of respect for. Multiple members of talent, where they spread rumors about the talent to stop them getting other works outside of the Riot bubble when they went freelance and stuff like that. It's insane. It's insane how malevolent and malicious they were. And they still haven't paid for any of it. This is just one thing that they did wrong. I have said, I started an article. I never got to finish it because I've just been too busy with all this other stuff. But I was going to put it out on their 10th year birthday. And basically the premise of the article was, were you ever going to not make 10 years? When you did this, and you did this, and you did this, and you fucked over these people, and you did that, and you said this, and everything you did was completely in your own self-interest, and you completely abused your position within the industry. Like you weren't going to make 10 years. So I wanted to put it out on their birthday just to fucking ruin the fucking vibe that they were on, because they were all like, oh, look, we've rolled out 4 games on the same day, and everyone's talking about us now, and because Activision Blizzard have shit the bed, they don't even need to be good. Lol, and they're all just fucking high-fiving each other. I really wanted to fucking rain on that parade, because it's just typical. You know, I've sat down, by the way, with some of the Riot Games higher-ups, and you know, they're like, we can do glasnost and wave the flag. And I said, listen, you can put me back on the fucking press list and you can invite me to your events. You got one in Vegas. I'll come and I'll give you nice coverage and, you know, and do some cool interviews and some cool content. But you must understand all of the sins, all of the transgressions like that. You will never be washed clean until you have fucking paid the penalties for them, which you absolutely have not done. So they don't get that. They think, right, it's line in the sand. It's been 10 years of us being absolute authoritarian cunts trying to sew up the entirety of the esports industry to suit us, and yet claiming we care about the ecosystem. So but now it's all good. We're in a good place and we got new games coming out. Can we all be friends now? Abso-fucking-lutely not. No. There is a debt to be paid. And it must be paid before you can be whole again. You should be thanking me. I'm going to give you your salvation. But I am going to write that article I am absolutely going to write that article. And I'm going to write up as well about how games journalists covered up a lot of their shit and didn't write negative press about them because they used to fucking go out partying with the Riot Games staff. Again, you can find plenty of examples of this. I want to say Nathan Grayson's an example of a dude that used to hang out with Riot staff. Don't think, so that's how they used to operate, man. They sewed up the media, made sure, it was see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil with the journalists. And then when there was one dissenting journalist like me, they wanted to absolutely fucking crush me into the ground. Because that's just how they are. So that's what they did to all their employees that ever tried to speak out. Whistleblower at Riot Games, go fuck yourself. You're getting crushed into oblivion. Anyway, 2 employees also filed individual wrongful termination and sexual harassment suits against the company. In response to the scandal, Riot committed to a series of internal initiatives to add more women to its leadership, close wage gaps, and change its company's culture. But in the spring of 2019, the legal battle spilled out of the courtroom and onto Riot West's LA corporate campus after Riot tried to force the 2 individual cases into arbitration. In response, employees organized a walkout. And yes, that's the other thing that's kind of got lost in all the noise in the settlement. Do remember, this was a company that basically was going to tell its female employees, if you were the victim of sexual harassment, and I shouldn't just single out women for this because anybody can be a victim of sexual harassment, but basically if you worked at Riot and you were the victim of sexual harassment in the workplace, you had to take mandatory forced arbitration in that case rather than it go to court. And you know why they do that? Because if it goes to court, then it's public. People can get the documents. People can learn about what you did. It would disgrace all of the sick, demented fucks that are doing that kind of stuff at the company. So no, you have to shut up, be a good little fucking peon and take your payout. And then and this is like what they do in government with fucking politicians. It's all hushed up, taxpayers' money paying out sexual fucking harassment lawsuit cases, and they try and push it away and keep it off the books because they don't want you to know about it. And these people could do it again and again and again, these serial fucking predators. And then we find out 30 years when they're old and decrepit and about to fucking pop their clogs, they were out there fucking harassing people their entire lives. Riot Games fully supports that culture and wanted to enforce that culture on its employees. Just let the wheels turn about what that means. Then, okay, think about what they publicly present themselves as being. A progressive company, a company that wants to make the internet a better place, a company that wants to educate you into how to be a better person. But we will cover up sexual harassment cases and deny victims of those cases their rights to further pursue it. But don't type a naughty word in a video game or we'll hit you with a creepy mental health survey asking if you've ever been bullied in your life. Store that data without checking the age, which is in violation of laws in many countries. Don't think about these things. Don't speak about these things, because if you do, you're just biased against Riot Games. They're a great company, said the League of Legends subreddit. So, this is why Riot Games remain one of the most monstrous companies in the landscape. This is why, even though Activision Blizzard are the new fucking white whale that me and Ahab are going to be chasing for a good few fucking years, Riot Games will never be fully done. Will never be fully over because they've got away with it, essentially. A lot of stuff needs to be highlighted, and maybe this new generation of people that are less enamored with the idea of Riot Games and sucking up to them and letting them get away with this stuff, maybe this new generation can run with some of these things and do stuff. Keep in mind, there are now employees whose NDAs have lapsed who could really fucking do some serious harm to this company if they would just open their mouths about some of the practices that were going on. So, for me, still an exciting time to be digging into Riot Games. Like, I'm absolutely all about that life. So, anyway, so remember, okay, I need you to think about this because we're not done with the Riot Games news, because we're never done with Riot Games news. We have to always, Riot Games I think the reason I dislike them as much as I do is the constant hypocrisy. It's always hypocrisy. Hypocrisy is such a loathsome quality, even though all humans do it. But when a corporation is hypocritical, and they have these like corporate values, and they have a system in place that their consumers, you can lose the video, right? Because they have decided arbitrarily that one of the directions they want their company to go in is, if you type mean things to people while playing a video game, the account that you have pumped, you know, hundreds, if not thousands of dollars into, they can shut it down and you can never gain access to it again. And you'll have to go onto another account and spend all that money again. Which, by the way, I'm pretty sure that should be the next frontier we should be looking at. Because this idea that being an asshole means that a company can take away something that you essentially have pumped thousands of dollars into, it doesn't sit right with me from a consumer perspective. And everyone talks about the horrors of microtransactions and, you know, all of this stuff. No one's talking about how you don't even own your accounts anymore. You don't own your account. You sign up to it. It is a conduit for you to give them money. And if at any point they decide you're an asshole, they shut it down and you have to go get another. Now, why wouldn't a company just arbitrarily shut down account after account after account after account, so you have to come back and spend all the money again if you want to get those cool skins you used to have or that limited edition skin you used to have? Why wouldn't they do it? It's a business model. It's how they make money, right? So why wouldn't they do that? Why wouldn't they exploit that? That needs to be looked at. But anyway, regardless, it's the hypocrisy. Riot Games think you're scum. They think you're scum, and they think you need to be molded into not being scum. And they think they're the people to do it. And they think the way to do it is to give you access to a free video game and fucking, you know, you play it, and they're better than you. And through this behavioral network they've got in place, they will turn you into a better person. They have publicly said this. They're on record as saying this. They think their video game can make the internet a better place. And does by making you behave and fall in line with their values. They're also a company that always says, we're against hate, we're against discrimination, everybody should be treated with dignity and everything else. So you're like, okay, Riot Games, good on you. I fully support that. I really do. Really do. I think sexism is vile, I think racism is vile, I think homophobia is vile. So hey, we're all on the same page, right, Riot Games? So why on earth can you explain to me then why a company that espouses their values have now decided to host their next event in Saudi Arabia?
People think my job is easy.
So let's be clear. You've just paid a $10 million settlement out, right? Because you don't respect your female employees. And now you decide in your tone-deaf way, after that's reported and goes public, you now announce this company that apparently champions human dignity and nobody should be homophobic and nobody should be racist and nobody should be sexist. You now decide to hold your event in a country that has one of the worst human rights records on planet Earth. Let me just read you something, by the way. Let me just read you. This is from the Wikipedia entry, okay, on Saudi Arabian human rights. LGBT rights in Saudi Arabia are unrecognized. Homosexuality is frequently a taboo subject in Saudi Arabian society and is punished with imprisonment, corporal punishment, and capital punishment. Capital punishment is the death penalty, by the way. Transgenderism is generally associated with homosexuality in Saudi Arabia, and doctors are banned by the Saudi Ministry of Health from even giving hormone replacement therapy to transgender people. In 2017, 2 transgender Pakistanis were tortured to death by the Saudi Arabian police force. This is the country Riot Games have deemed appropriate for one of their events, this company that fully supports women's rights, fully supports LGBT rights. You know, at what point? I haven't seen a single person, by the way, call this out. Not one person in esports has said, this is a disgrace. And let me tell you, this is worse than the China stuff. Because with the China stuff, right, the government, we all know about the Uyghur Muslim camps, right? And you're doing business in a country where the government is doing that. So that's pretty fucking bad. But you are not hosting an event in a country that flies completely contrary to the values that you supposedly subscribe to. So if I'm a gay fan of League of Legends, can I go to this event? If I'm a trans League of Legends player, can I go to this event? No, I can't. I could be killed for attending it. So what you have done is you have said that actually there is a dollar amount you are willing to forego those values for, and that means they aren't values at all. So fuck you, Riot Games, from the bottom of my fucking heart. This is an absolute fuck you to every one of your LGBTQ players and every woman player that you have. Because, lest we forget, because if you want me to read the bit on women's rights in Saudi Arabia, let me furnish you with women's rights in Saudi Arabia have been severely limited in comparison to the rights of women in many of its neighboring countries due to the strict interpretation, hence application of Sharia law in place in Saudi Arabia. The World Economic Forum's 2016 Global Gender Gap Report ranked Saudi Arabia 141st out of the 144 countries for gender parity. Kind of sounds like working at Riot Games, by the way. Except nobody makes Saudi pay out $10 million. The United Nations Economic and Social Council elected Saudi Arabia to the UN Commission on the Status of Women for 2018 to 2022 in a move that was widely criticized by the international community. Women in Saudi Arabia constitute 23% of the country's workforce as of 2015. In 2019, it went up to 34% of the native workforce, yet female workers' rights are still denied. Among the factors that define rights for women in Saudi Arabia are the government laws. I won't talk about Wahhabi Islam here. We'll skip through it, and we'll get to. They are forbidden. Women are forbidden from voting in all elections or being elected in political office. However, in 2011, King Abdullah did let women vote for the 2015 local elections and be appointed to the Consultative Assembly in a move that was considered progressive for the time. So, and they have just said, actually, that women can now be officers in the military this year. And women can drive now as well, so that's good, isn't it? They've made great strides. Great country. So anyway, Riot Games will host an esports tournament for its hit video game franchise, League of Legends, in Saudi Arabia this week, marking the latest major collaboration for an embattled nation that has invested heavily to lure Western sporting events despite international pressure regarding its human rights record. Dubbed the Nexus, the competition will take place from December 5th to December 7th in Riyadh and will feature $2 million in prizes across several events. The main event, Summoner's Rift, will have $850,000 in prizes and feature 8 qualifying teams from across the Middle East, North Africa, including Kuwait and Lebanon. The Nexus is our first step in solidifying our presence in the region to support and celebrate our players, Riot Games Metai General Manager Ona Tamer said in a statement. The launch of the Nexus Festival is just one part of our plan to increase our presence in this region. Riot Games also plans to release a localized version of League of Legends for Arabic language speakers in 2020, the company said. It's also going to feature a musical performance by Jason Derulo. So all is forgiven now. And is part of Riyadh Season, a weeks-long culture festival funded by the Saudi General Entertainment Authority. You know, it's just crazy to me because I remember the WWE getting fucking wrecked for having an event in Saudi. And again, as it should be. Until they get their human rights in order, until they stop killing gay people and trans people, why would a big American company want to go and support a regime that does things like that and then come back and talk about American values and how important it is we all love one another when you're actively promoting a country that does anything but? It is insane to me. And again, this is like just classic Riot Games. I'll have to write the article, I suppose. Like when I wrote the one in 2015 when they held Worlds in Singapore, a country that criminalizes homosexuality, where men holding hands in public have been arrested. And when I talked about this, all the Singapore League of Legends shills came out onto the Reddit thread. It got downvoted, by the way. It finished on about 38%. Yes, Richard Lewis was called an SJW cook for saying people shouldn't go to prison for being gay. Crazy, I know, how times change. That was also, of course, the same year that I ended up joining Breitbart for 6 months. You know, what is he? Is he an SJW? Is he a right-wing fascist? Nobody knows. It's crazy. So, you know, because I think values have to mean something. It's crazy, I know. I think values have to mean something. I think you have to believe them. I think when a corporation, this is why corporate values is an oxymoron, because they don't mean them. It's a commercial for their company. Corporate values. That's all it is. It's look how good we are, so give us money. That's it. But the tone deaf announcement, doing it so soon after you've had your own gender discrimination case, is insane. And it's classic Riot. No one's going to call them out. It starts in a couple of days. Have you read the articles? Anyone said? Is anyone saying Riot Games holding an event in Saudi Arabia is a disgrace? Have you seen that out there? Nah. They just get to do it. They just get to be hypocrites, don't they? Because they got all the money and they make cool games, so it's all right. You bang on your Activision Blizzard with the China stuff, though, which, by the way, as we'll get to, that's done absolutely fuck all. It's back to business as usual. Oh, Diablo 4, you fucking weaklings. And just one more thing in Riot Games, because, you know, remember, we're Riot Games and we love the ecosystem, and we're Riot Games and we love esports, and we're Riot Games and we would never do anything unreasonable, and we're Riot Games and we just want everybody to be happy and la 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 la. All right, Riot Games, this one barely made a ripple. There is a small Counter-Strike organization called Riot Squad. Might have heard of them if you follow Counter-Strike. Now, I think you might also be familiar with the term Riot Squad. Do you know what a Riot Squad is? A Riot Squad is a police force that goes in to quell a riot. This is a recognizable phrase. Riot Games decided to file a lawsuit against Riot Squad, the small amateur CS team because they say they have intentionally used the name Riot to deliberately deceive their fans into thinking they are a subsidiary, offshoot, or the company itself. That is the basis for what is a surely baseless lawsuit. I'll read it to you. League of Legends developer Riot Games has filed a lawsuit against Chicago-based esports organization Riot Squad. Can't even believe it's real. Riot Games alleged Riot Squad management hopes and intends that by its use of the Riot brand name, consumers will mistakenly believe that its esports organization is in some manner associated with, sponsored or endorsed by, or otherwise affiliated with Riot and its hugely popular products and services. Riot Games has trademarked Riot and Riot Games when used in connection in video games and esports, it said. So, it's all. I do relish. I would love, I would love to see Riot Games sue a police force. Well, they sent the Riot Squad to the riot, and we wouldn't want anyone to think that our brave officers were in any way endorsed, supported by Riot Games. Riot Games asked the California court to forbid Riot Squad from using the Riot marks and award the developer damages for its use, and for the esports organization to deliver up for destruction all materials and products. In the lawsuit, Riot Games specifically calls out the prominence of the word Riot in the esports team marketing and on its jersey. And you can see there, this is what they think is encroaching on their logo. I'll bring it up. You can see as well, if you want to go to this, it's on Polygon. I wouldn't advise clicking on them normally, but you can get the full lawsuit there. I've read it. It's not very long. It's 18 pages. But Riot Squad notably doesn't own a League of Legends team, but fields rosters in Counter-Strike, Fortnite, Rainbow Six, Apex Legends, and PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. Two of its streamers, Chibi, you might have heard of, and Thump, big fan, assigned to its content squad to stream on Twitch. The esports organization was founded in 2019 and has a relatively small audience. At the time of writing this, only 8,128 followers on Twitter. Let's see what they think is encroaching. Because let's look at the Riot logo. Remember, they changed it to a bro fist. Hilarious to do that when you were being investigated for toxic bro culture and how that affects women employees in your company. It's almost as if you don't give a fuck. Just saying. And then you see the word Riot Games, right? So that is the Riot logo, essentially. It's like this, right? This is what they say is encroaching on their copyright. On their trademarks, rather. It's the word riot with a gas mask instead of an O. Can anybody explain to me... Can anybody explain to me the similarities here between these two things? It just seems to me to be absolutely absurd. So that's Riot Games still, in a nutshell, ladies and gentlemen. The most egregious, over-the-top, piece of shit company that would sue a small, semi-professional organization into the ground and make it have to destroy its logo, make it have to destroy... You know, they would do that for reasons. It doesn't even benefit them in any way, shape, or form, except to say, well, look, we always protect our. It's the word riot. There's, you know, it's an English word, Riot Squad. You know, it's nonsensical that they're doing this, and it just shows how little they care about this ecosystem that they always talk about how much they love. We love esports. We love it so much. Grassroots organization, stamp it into the ground. We made $1.4 billion in 2018. We are owned by a Chinese mega corporation. You have 8,000 Twitter followers. Smash them into the ground. Riot Games, ladies and gentlemen. They are fucking slime. They are fucking slime. How has anybody ever got time for this company? How is anybody ever going to sit there and go, these guys are great, they make a video game I like and play? If only the fucking Gestapo had fucking thought of that, eh? Instead of rounding you up, just make you play a video game. You'd be fucking complicit in all sorts of horrendous shit. Fucking nonsense.